You're listening to Demand and Disrupt, the podcast for information about accessibility, advocacy, and all things disability.
Welcome to Demand and Disrupt, a disability podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Parsley.
And I'm your co-host, Sam Moore. On this week's episode, I am privileged to speak with Mr. Al Gentry. I discovered Al while I was watching KET one night. The Kentucky Edition program did a feature on the Kentucky Amputee Golf Tournament, which today's guest, Al Gentry, actually founded. Al is a one-armed golfer, Kimberly, and he had a workplace incident in 1993 that caused the amputation of one of his arms, but he has not let that hinder him in his quest to golf competitively. And so we're going to hear about Al's journey in the realm of one-armed competitive golf. How's that sound, Kimberly?
That sounds so fascinating. I'm interested by any athletes because I have never been an athlete, so it always interests me. Another thing I have never been, Sam, is an actor, but you have. So tell me, how did things go with the taffy shenanigans?
Yeah, I'm an amateur actor, I guess. Although I've been in several of local playwright Bob Park's plays at this point. It went great, Kimberly. It was a bunch of fun. Thank you for asking. It's a great group that I was with too. I'm starting to miss them already. You know, it's only been 12 days or 13, I guess, as we record this. But yes, it was lots of fun, and I think as far as the reports I got, everybody in the audience left with a smile on their face, and I made my way through running the radio station at least adequately. And there was one time I sort of flubbed up my lines, but I think I covered it up decently enough that not too many people noticed. So
just one time, that's pretty good though, right?
Yeah, there were a bunch of lines in there too. Not that I'm complaining. It was a lot of fun. But yes, it like a good group, and I definitely wouldn't trade the experience for the world. Knowing Bob Park, he's not far ever from a pen and paper, so he's probably already jotting ideas down for another one.
So what is next for Sam Moore in the theatrical realm?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That remains to be seen. But you folks keep your ears peeled. I'll keep you posted. I guess for the time being, it's just going to be blabbing in the bluegrass and on Demand and Disrupt and Rock House on the River trivia hosting a few times a month. So
well, but here on Demand and Disrupt, you are Sam Moore, just authentically Sam, correct?
Authentically Sam. That's very well put, Kimberly. Absolutely.
So enjoying September up there in Henderson, are you?
Yeah, it's been unbelievable weather for the most part. Now they're calling for rain well, we did get a little dose of rain the other night. I think Wednesday night it was, but that was the first time in forever, and we kind of needed it. Before that, we were spoiled with like 2 straight weeks of rock solid weather, which is pretty unbelievable. I'm sure we'll pay for it at some point because here in Kentucky we actually do have 4 seasons.
Yeah, they tend to not come like in 4 boxes. It's a little here, a little there, a little of this, a little of that. Any time of year, it could be anything.
Yeah, you sort of, all the cold weather isn't necessarily in winter, and all the hot weather isn't necessarily in summer.
No. But you're right, it was the weather. I make my annual announcement that it is pumpkin spice season, y'all.
Oh, yes. Pumpkin spice is all the craze.
It's everywhere. I've had my first pumpkin spice latte. And
have you now?
I have. And then also I bought some, got out the pumpkin spice candles and all the things. So
free plug to Dairy Queen. Have you ever had that pumpkin spice blizzard that they generally bring back in October?
No, I haven't.
You'll have to watch for it next month. I'm sure it'll be back. It's Yeah, it's a pumpkin pie blizzard is what it's called. And it's got little pumpkin pie chunks in there.
Now I get a pumpkin spice milkshake from Culver's. We have a Culver's here, and so I get that sometimes. Now you've got me wanting that. So,
But now I know where you'll be heading later tonight. You'll be like,
well,
Michael, take me to Culver's.
It's hot today and it's September, so it's the perfect time for a pumpkin spice, like you said, blizzard or milkshake or whatever, right?
Another landmark in your neck of the woods, Cheney's Dairy Barn. They probably have something like that too.
If I go to Cheney's, I am 100% getting their banana pudding ice cream. So,
is that like a can't miss every time you go?
Every time, yes, it is so good. It is like the best ice cream. It really is.
Banana pudding ice cream.
I know. Yep. So
yeah. You banana folks out there, banana fanatics, make sure you remember that when you go Cheney's.
Right.
And if you're not in Bowling Green, even if you're not there, it's well worth the time and effort to get there, isn't it?
It's worth it. When they have like a playground thing. So when the kids were little, we'd go there and
and the farm and everything.
Yeah, the farm and stuff. The funniest thing I've ever heard was at Jackson's Orchard, which is another place. It's here locally, and it's an orchard, and you can buy apple cider and all this kind of stuff. And they have a petting zoo. And there's a sign on the petting zoo when you go in. It says, unaccompanied children will be sent home with an espresso and a bunny.
With an espresso and a bunny. Then they'll go home, drive their parents up the wall.
I know. So I think that got the message across that you're not allowed to send your kids in here unaccompanied. So it's
kind of sad that they even had to post that sign to begin with, but...
Well, it was a very classy way to have gone about it. It's a classy way of saying we are not babysitting your children. Come in here with them. So.
Yeah, it's a really polite way of saying we ain't doing
it. Exactly. Exactly. So I love that. It still makes me laugh. And it's been like over a decade since I was there, and someone, probably a friend of mine with kids, read that sign to me.
That to you. Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness.
And you know what else time of year it is?
Drum roll.
I know, right? It is Disability Rights Voting Week. I had to put together my Disability Rights Voting Week. It's by the American Association of People with Disabilities, AAPD. Yeah. So very important. Lots of things going on there with getting people registered, learning how to register. So doing my civic duty, I will tell everyone. I feel like I'm talking mostly to people in Kentucky, but I think what I'm about to say probably
applies to people anywhere.
I think it probably applies to most people. You must be a U.S. citizen. You must be a resident of the state that you are voting in.
Right.
You must be 18 years of age minimum, and you cannot, at least in Kentucky, you cannot have a felony unless you have had that felony removed from your record by the governor or whatever process with that.
Good to know. If you have a felony on your record, at least for the time being.
And there is a process. If you do have a felony, there is a process by which you can go through in Kentucky, and I believe most states, to get that removed. You'll just have to look into that. Linked on the show notes, I will have a link to the Secretary of State's office.
Oh, couldn't be any easier.
Yeah, which is where you'll go to register to vote. You can also go to your county clerk's office where you are, and oftentimes the public library will have voter registration forms. So you can.
In Henderson, the county clerk is Miss Renisa Abner. She is a great lady. Who is it down there in Bowling Green? Do you know the name?
I would have if you hadn't put.
If I hadn't asked
there, yes. No, I don't know actually off the top of my head.
But she'll be glad to help you and answer any questions you may have.
Sure. I'm sure that person would. And then I also link to the Kentucky Board of Elections just in case.
So you got some great links, and you folks that as long as you meet all the aforementioned, criteria. Make sure you exercise that right.
It is so important to exercise that right, especially as disabled people. We are in an era right now where lots of things are being cut for various reasons. Things for people with disabilities, some services are being cut. And if you feel like you want those cuts to stay, or if you just want your voice heard on disability issues or any issues, the way to do that is to vote. And the reason we have something like Disability Voters Week is because it is hard for disabled people to vote, something we've talked about on this show. It's hard for us to vote. It's hard for us to register.
But it's easier than it used to be.
In a lot of ways it is. Sometimes it's not. But, our voice is through our vote. So
it is. And now I know for people like Kimberly and I who are visually impaired, they have these audible machines where, at least in a lot of counties, and if they don't have one where you are, you can request it. But they have these machines where, you put your headphones on and you scroll through your options and it tells you audibly.
Exactly. And if when you're voting, or even if you decide to register and you're having trouble registering, then also on our show notes, I'm going to put the hotline for the Kentucky Department for Protection and Advocacy, and they will take down your information about the trouble you had about voting as a disabled person, and they will help you out. So,
see, the show notes is just a wealth of information this time. It always is, but especially this time.
I just don't want anybody to have any reason not to vote. It's so important that we vote, because that is, if elected officials look and they say, hey, look, there's lots of disabled people voting, I need to make sure that obviously they have a lot of things to say, so I need to listen.
And don't think, well, I would just have one vote and that wouldn't make a difference. Trust me, it does.
It does. One vote makes so much difference because we're all just one vote.
Yeah, and if a bunch of people vote once, it all adds up.
Exactly. And I don't know if you mentioned this yet, but Mr. Al Gentry is more than just a golfer. He is a legislator as well, correct?
That's right. Yeah, his I think it's the 46th district. Al can correct me if I'm wrong, but yes, he is a state representative, and his territory covers part of Louisville. I don't think all of it, but he's from Louisville, and his district does indeed cover part of it. And so, yes, he does proudly serve his district and serves as a proud voice for his people. In fact, when we talked, he was actually coming to me from Frankfort. They were actually in session.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we don't want to put off that interview any longer. So
Al is waiting in the wings patiently.
Exactly.
But don't forget, disruptors, email us questions, comments.
hit us with it, Sam. What's the email address there?
It's real tough. You folks may want a pen and paper to remember it. demandanddisrupt@gmail.com.
Wonderful.
Anything on your mind, feel free to lay it on us. We're pretty thick-skinned. We may not be able to help you necessarily if you got, problems or chaos in your life, but we'll lend you an ear if nothing else.
I bet we can help. I bet between the two of us, we can help out with most
between the two
things.
of us, we'll have some sort of solution.
Excellent. All right. Well, I cannot wait to hear your interview, Sam, with Mr. Al Gentry.
He developed a passion for golf at a very young age, and despite losing his right arm in a workplace accident come about 1993, he continues to golf regularly and also help and inspire others in his shoes to golf regularly as well through his creation of the Kentucky Amputee Tournament, which we'll talk about here shortly, along with the North American One-Armed Golfer Association, which he co-founded along with a few others. Also, the Fight Master Cup, which is also known as the Ryder Cup of one-armed golf. Commonly, a lot of people refer to it as that. So, and he also published a book of golf standards for individuals with disabilities, maybe limited to one arm like Al is. And so that's actually unique because it was the first of his kind to ever be published in the United States. So all of these and even a little more that we can dabble in as we go along here with a man who's actually a state representative as well, representing the 46th district, which includes part of the city of Louisville and then some. But he's coming to us today from the state capitol. So please welcome via Zoom in Frankfurt, none other than Mr. Al Gentry. Al, it is a pleasure to have you aboard here. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule there in Frankfurt to join us. Have you seen Andy lately? Have you seen the governor floating around?
Yeah, I run across Andy every now and then. So we're not in session at the time. When we are in session, we meet pretty regularly, but we're in what we call the interim session. So we actually work on committee meetings on the committees that we work on. But yeah, from time to time, I bump into the governor.
Yeah, I figured you did, and I know he spreads his business across the state, so no telling where he is today. But at any rate, we're sure glad you're here. Now, how long have you been a state representative, Al?
Sam, I was elected in 2016. So my first legislative session was in January of 17. And if I can count right, in my fifth term right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've served continuously ever since. So, it's obviously still going strong, and momentum is certainly in your favor. Now, you're a lifelong Louisvillian, I know, and you've held a steady passion for the game of golf most, if not all, of your life, sir. So, first off, why don't you tell us sort of when and how you developed an attachment to the sport?
Okay. Well, it goes back to, I guess I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And when I was a kid growing up, I loved playing every sport I could. I was very active. And in my grade school years in St. Lawrence Catholic school, I played about every sport a man could play, or a boy could play, I should say.
So it was
And then
rare
when I
that you
got into
sat
high
down.
school, yeah, when I got into high school, I was exceptionally talented in the game of golf. So I played golf. Now I had two arms back then.
Right.
Um, I was I was so good at golf, I really had to quit the other sports and focus on the one sport, because you know how that works. When you're good and you play at a certain level, you got to do it all the time to stay at that level and continue to improve.
Yeah,
And
especially
I
as you
didn't
get
really
older.
like, yeah, I really didn't like that a whole lot because I liked playing so many other sports. So as the story goes, by the time I made it to my senior year in high school, I was being heavily recruited and Division I college offers, and quite frankly, Sam, the last thing I wanted to do was play golf when I went to college. So I declined them all and quit and went to school for geology.
So by the time you got done with high school, you decided you were about burnout on golf.
Yeah, and I went to the University of Louisville and did graduate work at the University of Kentucky, and uh, I became a geologist and eventually a hydrogeologist, and that's how I started the first part of my professional career. And 10 years later, I was involved in a drilling rig accident that took my right arm, and I was immediately introduced to the world of amputee golf, and I came
Amputee
back to the
golf.
game that I loved as a kid.
Yeah, so by then you were probably itching to play again, and you satisfied that itch thanks to amputee golf. But anyhow, that's neat. So geology was your BS at U of L, and I'm guessing at UK your graduate work was basically an extension of that, or maybe some sort of branch of geology.
Yeah, When I received my bachelor's degree at Louisville, I immediately went to work. Went to work for a mineral exploration company and was working primarily in the Western U.S. But I had a kind of job. I had one of those fun jobs where I had a partner and a chocolate lab and a four-wheel drive truck, and our only client was a diamond corporation in Belgium. So we
Mm.
worked the United States and had kind of our own schedule. And we used one of them things called a fax machine to
I
fax in
remember
our
those.
monthly reports. And and then I got flown home a week every month. So we kind of, when I was on the road, we kind of worked every day. I think we got one day off for laundry and that sort of thing, and and then I had most of my days, what would be equivalent to weekend days. I had them all in a row at the end of the month, at my home in my hometown. So that was the life of being a traveling geologist on the road, and it doesn't fare real well with family. So that's what I did when I was single, and when you're young and experienced in that type of work, you get laid off in the wintertime when it snows heavily and you cannot work in the mountains anymore.
Oh,
So
wow.
during my layoff period, first layoff period, I went to graduate school at UK for hydrogeology, which was more in the environmental field, and we're talking late 80s, early 90s. That's where most of the geology jobs were back then. So that was kind of the thing to go into. And so I transitioned when I was at UK. I ended up getting a job with an environmental consulting firm in Louisville. So I never got to go back to the to West to work again after that first year. So that, even though that job was very fun, it was pretty short lived, and
Yeah.
did most of my geology work in the environmental consulting field.
Well, at least you'll always have the memory. So, how long did it take you to get your master's?
Well, I was going part time,
Right.
and the way that worked was I was working full time in Louisville for this consulting firm, and they were working with me to get my master's. And so I was going to get my master's, and right before I finished, I had my accident. You know,
Oh, okay. So that's where our accident factors in here in
yep,
'93.
yep. And that happened in 1993. I was 28 years old, and I think I had one semester left with just one or two classes that I was getting ready to start in January of 1993. And on the 5th of January, right before classes started, is when I had my accident. And then, of course, when I had my accident, everything changed, and it was all about learning how to live in the new world that I was christened into,
Right.
which with a disability.
Yeah, it was this
So I
sort of
never fully obtained my master's degree, even though I did 99% of the work. And
right.
by the time, and a few years later, when I wanted to go back to finish, um, they no longer had a graduate geology program. That had ended.
Oh,
So
the
I didn't have to
program had
finish.
been discontinued, huh?
Yeah, so it's
Oh,
kind of unfortunate, but that was the story of my college challenges, even after I lost my arm. So
well, you at least you did most of the graduate work with the help of your employer, and I know learned a great deal in the process. So let's talk a little more about your accident here in 1993. You said it was a drilling accident. Tell us more about the type of work you were doing and the nature of the accident, more
okay.
so specifically.
Sure. Again, we worked for a private consulting firm, and basically what we did, Sam, is we represented industry for the most part, as they were going through the regulatory process of sometimes they've had a release or spill into the subsurface, and so they would hire us to come in as their consultants to assess what had happened, B, to remediate or clean up what had happened, and in some instances, C, prepare a risk assessment to move on and kind of take the industry, the company by the hand and walk them through the whole regulatory process and work with the state regulatory agency to get to closure. Now that's kind of what we did. And at at the time of my accident, we were working for a major automobile manufacturing company there in Louisville. They were in the process of removing all of their underground storage tanks and going to an above storage system. And that would include like fuels and paints for manufacturing process of automobiles, trucks, that sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
And what we had did, of course, a couple of them leaked and had some releases. So when that happened, we came in and would drill and do subsurface soil sampling or groundwater sampling around a particular area to define the extent of contamination. On a particular day of the accident, we were done drilling. We were using a real small handheld drill because we were drilling under power lines. And when you drill under power lines, you can't bring a truck mounted rig in because
No.
it's too dangerous. Um, so that didn't have a whole lot to do with the accident other than we were drilling in an area that had been dug up before. And as geologists, we call it fill material because you're liable to run into anything in fill material because humans dig holes and when they fill them back up, sometimes they throw a lot of human things back into that hole. So if
This
you
is
can
true.
imagine a wire coat hanger unraveled, the auger came connected with something like that underground. So when we were pulling the augers back out of the ground, as the auger was spinning around, this piece of copper wire was attached to a peg and swung around and snagged my jacket sleeve. I happened to be standing right next to the drill.
Oh, goodness.
And so it was probably a 1,000,000 to 1 kind of thing that just happened. When it grabbed me, it wrapped my arm around the machine backwards. So I had disconnected elbow right away and pretty severe injury and was fighting for my life. Um, so the emergency team had to come in and peel me off of it, put me in a helicopter and send me down to the hospital emergency room. So that's kind of how the accident happened. And
Goodness
I will
gracious.
get into this because this is a great story. But when I was a junior golfer, there used to be a pro celebrity golf tournament at Louisville at
Right.
Hurstbourne Country Club. In fact, that particular golf course just hosted a PGA Tour event this weekend. But if you can go way back to an old famous actor called Foster Brooks, he used to play a drunk.
That name sounds
Uh,
familiar.
yeah, and he was from Louisville, and he would have this tournament annually and raise a bunch of money and give to um, crippled crippled children, for Kozer um, Shriners organization.
Oh,
And
wow.
there was a gentleman. So us junior golfers would go out and follow the pros and the movie stars, but we'd always end up following one guy. And that one guy, his name was Don Fightmaster, and
Oh,
he was
yes.
a famous one-armed golfer. And so we watched this guy with one arm play golf and we're blown away by it as kids. So now fast forward 10, 12 years later, after I had walked away from the game of golf, I had never met Mr. Fightmaster, but I remembered watching him at that pro celebrity event. So as they were wheeling me into the emergency room, I looked at all the trauma staff and I said, "Look out, Don Fightmaster, I'm coming after you." So the one of the gals there, she was a nurse and she knew exactly who he was because her uncle, I think, was very good friends with Don. So she called her uncle and talked to her uncle, and he called Don, and Don came to my hospital bed. So
How
before I left
about
the
that?
hospital, I was introduced to the world of amputee golf, which I had no idea even existed, other
Don
than
Don didn't happen to remember you from 10, 12 years back, did he?
no, he had never we had never met. Now the uncle guy that contacted Don, he was a local club pro at one of the golf courses, and he remembered me from 10 years before. He remembered me as a golfer being very good and then kind of disappeared from the game. So
He was
it's
like,
funny
"Yeah,
how
I
that
know that guy."
how that
Oh,
all works. So Don came into my room and he basically told me all the magnificent things he had accomplished 30 years um, being one-armed. And he had told me, son, your life's not over. Your new life is just beginning. And he
see,
gave
and
me a lot of inspiration to move forward. So,
and you were like, if he's done all this, then why can't I do at least a portion
yeah,
of that?
yeah.
So about how long was it from the time Don came and visited you that first time in the hospital until the time you were able to play in your next first tournament, shall we say?
Well, that, like I said, my accident happened in January. Of course, around here, it gets pretty cold in the winter months. So
Oh yeah.
I was out hitting golf balls in the spring, and in September of that same year, I traveled to Tennessee to play in my first amputee golf tournament.
See, so good
And
later that year.
yep, yep. And I was planning to go down there and kick all of them's rear, and was blown away by how good these guys were. Which at that moment I couldn't even begin to carry a candle how good they were, and I was not only tremendously humbled, but I was tremendously inspired because I saw what I could become if I put the work and the effort into it. I knew the game of golf. I just had to figure out how to play one-armed golf.
Yeah.
And so that was my dream. That, I had a dream now. I had something to work forward to. And as I went on that journey and that path and started experiencing some success, it totally changed my life because the self-confidence and self-esteem that I started generating from a sport that I was familiar with carried on to everyday life and helped me every day battling the challenge of living life as with a disability.
Oh yes, I can imagine. So yes, you knew your potential was there when you saw those other guys in Tennessee. Plus, it gave you something to work towards, and you were eventually able to gain ground and still maintain your passion to this day. Now, not long after the loss of your right arm, sir, you founded the Kentucky Amputee Tournament, and this has allowed many with disabilities to enjoy competitive golf with the benefit of a level playing field. So, talk a little bit about the steps that needed to be taken in order to make this annual event a reality, Al.
Well, like I said, my first tournament, I went to the tournament in Tennessee.
Right?
And when we were down there, so blown away, so inspired, all that, I looked at my father who had went with me down there, and I said, we can do a Kentucky tournament. We need to start a Kentucky tournament. And he said, well, yeah, we can do it at South Park, which was South Park Country Club is where it started in 1994, and he was a member there. So that's kind of where we kicked it all off at. And the tournament
Cool.
now is held at Shelbyville Country Club in Shelbyville, Kentucky. Had a couple of guys take it over after I got it rolling for several years. And as you probably know, the Kentucky Amputee celebrated its 30th anniversary earlier this year. And we had a year or two there we had to take a break from COVID. But so
Sure.
even though it's been 32 years or 31 years, I guess, since it started, we've had 30 events now. So
Yeah,
pretty
and of
remarkable.
course, yes, I did enjoy the KET special on that, and that's quite an achievement to celebrate 30 years. It would be like you said, 32, but minus those couple years that it was forced to
Yeah.
take hiatus due to COVID. Celebrated the 30th anniversary, and always better late than never. Now, anyone who wants a glimpse of of diversity, Al. They owe it to themselves to watch amputee tournament participants in action. So, why don't you discuss the wide range of disabilities that are commonly represented among these golfers?
Okay, I'll do that, and I'll give a little bit of background as well. In the
Sure.
1990s, amputee golf was very rampant, and it was everywhere. We were that was kind of the disability type that was widely recognized in golf, although we had a blind organization back then. Um, and in 2000, we started the North American One-Armed Golfer Association. So in one-armed golf, you not only have amputees with, in amputee golf, you have individuals with arms and legs off, or either one.
Mm-hmm.
In one-armed golf, you have upper extremity disabilities that might cause somebody to play one-handed, even though they have two arms. Um, uh, a good example of that would be a stroke, or what we call a brachial plexus injury, which is a nerve injury that where you lose use of one arm, or you might have some sort of birth defect or abnormality um, in an upper extremity that would cause some level of disability or impairment. And then what we did in 2014 is we brought all the organizations together. Um,
Hmm.
that was under an organization called the United States Adaptive Golf Alliance.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Uh-huh.
by the by the time we had reached 2012, something like that, the whole disability world in golf was much like the disability world um, with nonprofits. It's very siloed, where organizations were focused on a specific type of disability. And so what we did under the golf umbrellas, we brought everybody together and did so that in such a way that all the existing organizations could still operate and operate autonomously, but they would also operate as part of a larger group, an alliance, is what we called it. And so all the members were not the people, it were the organizations that either taught the game of golf or held events for people with disabilities in the game of golf. And then once we did that and had all of these member organizations together, we wrote the standards for what we call adaptive golf. So we use the word adaptive instead of disabled because it's a more positive word.
Right.
Disabled suggests that you're something less, is the way we looked at it. And no, we all have strengths and weaknesses, whether we have a disability or not.
Right.
So
It's
what we
true.
do every day is something quite remarkable. We adapt despite our challenges. So
Sure.
we called our sport adaptive golf, to put a little more of a positive spin on it. And what golf does for these individuals is it really provides medicine. It's a environment where you can come and compete and be successful doing something on your own, playing against someone who is somewhat equally impaired. And so when we wrote the standards of golf, we created 15 different sport classes. And what I mean by that is if you have a lower leg disability, like an amputation, then you play against others with the same type of impairment. If you are a one-armed golfer, or there's, when you look at the vision impaired or the blind guys, yeah, we have people that play golf that can't see at all. They're totally blind.
Yeah, I heard
Amazing
about one guy
athletes.
that did that this year.
Yeah, it's amazing athletes. And but there's also three different levels of vision impaired. And basically the way that works is one level is you can't see anything at all, and one level is you have vision impairment, but you can see uh, just you
You know,
might be lacking peripheral vision.
Sure.
And then a level two would be something in between where it's a little more extensive of an impairment, but not to the extent where you're total loss of sight. So there's
I
three different
see.
sport classes within vision impaired alone.
Right.
So you go up and down the line with arms and legs and more neurological type challenges or like intellectual sport class, or what we have a neurological sport class, which might include cerebral palsy, spinal type injuries, and various type things. So in those sport classes, you'll find somebody just like you that you can compete against.
Yeah, and so ever since the alliance was formed, people with all of these disabilities have been competing in the same amputee tournament. As you mentioned, it was 2000 when you and your aforementioned mentor, Don Fightmaster, and a couple other Kentuckians teamed up and created the North American One Armed Golfer Association. So, why don't you shed a little more light on the purpose that serves and some of the other means in addition to the tournaments and so forth that we've touched on to this point, by
Yeah,
which
yeah,
it has enabled golfers to remain active.
yeah. Back if you go back again to the 1990s, I was attending off and on clinics that were called the First Swing Clinic that the National Amputee Golf Association was running. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we would have these learn to golf clinics, and they would bring some of the players out, amputee players, to help teach these individuals that are just learning how to play golf. And I kept running into guys that were, well, like a stroke patient, where they didn't have limb loss, but they definitely had a disability, and they were falling in love with learning how to play golf and one-handed golf, but then they didn't really have anywhere to go. So we just created another organization where these kinds of individuals that had upper extremity non-amputee impairments had somewhere to go and compete and play. And we mimicked this off of an organization in the United Kingdom called the Society of One-Armed Golfers, um, which, by
Okay.
the way, is probably the oldest, not only um, disabled golf organization in the world, but maybe even the oldest sports disability organization in the world. They were founded in 1932,
Oh
a
goodness.
division by World War One airplane pilots. There were a small group of them that had these upper extremity disabilities. I don't really know how that was created or started, but
Gosh, so that was
um,
93 years ago.
yeah. So I mean, right around the corner, we'll have a 100-year anniversary coming up on that organization. But
Yeah, they'll be.
so that's the organization in Europe, and they have been around forever. Mr. Fightmaster had went over there and won 2 world championships. That's where he gained his celebrity status, I guess, as a one-armed golfer. And he had told me all about it. So in 1997, 4 years after I lost my arm, I went over there for the first time and played in their championship, and was able to take my wife and mother and father. And so we enjoyed a trip to Scotland, and that was fabulous. And um, but anyway,
I'm
the
sure.
One Arm Association, it was kind of like the first amputee tournament when I went to Tennessee and said, well, we can do this in Kentucky. So when I went to Scotland, I said, well, we can do this in the United States.
Right.
And Don said, well, let's do it.
Why
So we
not?
did it.
And since it's
And
the North American One Arm Golfer Association, I'm guessing it
yeah,
includes members nationwide.
yeah, and this and not only nationwide, but Canada and Mexico as well. Now in Mexico, we're still working on trying to get adaptive golf down there, but we do have a couple of players from Mexico, and
Oh,
we have
nice.
several from Canada. We've had our championship in Canada a couple of different times, and I think we're going to be there next year in Alberta. So um, it's definitely a North American organization, and and I will say this that 8 years later, we started the Fightmaster Cup, which we named after Mr. Fightmaster, and that was the Ryder Cup competition where the Americans play against the Europeans,
Yes.
against the Society of One-Armed Golfers, and both of us have qualifying point systems based on events in our country and our countries, I should say, and so we qualify teams, and it's a competition of the best, and happens every 2 years, and switches back and forth to from Europe to the United States. So we haven't had one in Canada yet. We might have to consider that here shortly, but
Yeah, gotta
yeah.
gotta have something to work towards there. But yes, this is the best of the best between North America and Europe, and like you said, it happens biannually. I think I read this year it was over in Europe, was it not?
This year we did not play. We played last time. It happens every 2 years.
Oh, so this was
Uh,
this was an off year then. Okay.
yeah, this is no. It hasn't happened yet.
Oh, it's on the
It will
way.
be it
Okay.
will be in September, mid-September in Ireland.
Oh, so it's in
And
Ireland later this year.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And I'm honored to say that I am the captain of Team America. So I get to take my team
All right.
to Ireland, and I was the captain in 23 for the first time, and we won the Americans won the cup for the first time in several years, and when we did that, they asked me to do it again. So I said, well, I've got to do it again. So
Yeah, you
we have
can't
we have
can't
never
say no to
traveled
that.
overseas and won the cup. So this is going to be the first time we do that.
Well, I like that attitude. Way to go, Mister Team Captain. Now, how many will you have on your team? Do you know just yet?
Yes, yes, we have 12 members, both sides. It's 12 against 12, and the format is exactly the same as the Ryder Cup. And the way that works, it's a 3-day event, and there will be 4 team matches of 2 against 2 in morning on day 1 and morning of day 2. Also 4 matches, team matches on the afternoon of day 1 and the afternoon of day 2. And each one of those matches, each team plays 8 players in a session. So there will be 4 players sitting out that particular session. Of course, there's 2 sessions per day. And then on day 3, there's just 1 session, and it's singles matches, and uh, every player from both teams plays. So it'll be 12 against 12 in singles
Yeah, well,
match.
that's that'll be exciting for you come September. You'll get a weekend overseas, and like you said, you'll be bringing back that trophy. We know you will. So,
It's really turned out to be just an extremely special event. It's a tremendous honor to make a team. Um, and really, quite frankly, Sam, when we go to our national championships, there's almost more focus on how many Fightmaster Cup points people are earning than winning a championship because they want to be on this team.
yeah, and there's bragging rights for people that earn more
Yeah,
points than
it's
others
kind of
and that
like
sort of thing.
the Ryder Cup and on the PGA Tour. It's there's
Yeah,
nothing like teeing it up and playing for your country. And when you talk to most of the players, they will tell you that they get more nervous in a Ryder Cup competition than they did in any individual event they ever played in.
isn't that something? That tells you that they take it quite seriously. So I'm guessing Fight Master Cup qualifying events sort of happen throughout the spring and the summer, then leading up to this.
Yeah, it happens over a 2-year period since it's every 2 years, and it's only the one-arm event. So we have an annual meeting and championship every year, which moves around the country at a different location. Um, we also have what we call a winter regional competition, which is in Florida in January every year over a
Makes
weekend.
sense. Okay.
So it's nice for us to break away from our jobs, especially when we haven't touched a club in a couple of months, and we all get together in Florida and have a little winter competition. And then based on your performance in those two events, you acquire points, and whoever acquires the most points or get on the team, and we have 10 automatic qualifier spots, and then whoever the captain is gets to select 2 captain's picks to complete the team.
Okay,
So
so
that's how that
2 of them are
works.
your picks, and the
Yeah.
other 10 are automatic. Now, as you alluded to, and we talked about a few minutes earlier, you were instrumental in the establishment of the United States Adaptive Golf Alliance in 2014. This made it possible, I know, for people with all sorts of disabilities to sort of come together and play in the Adaptive Golf Kentucky Tournament every year when that happens. And to talk about some of the other events that have been made possible through the Alliance and the sort of the other pursuits that the Alliance partakes in every so often.
Yeah, the game's pretty much exploded over the last 10 or 11 years, and since the incorporation of the Alliance. And by the way, we now have 57 member organizations involved with the United States Adaptive Golf Alliance. So it's a massive deal. We have generated over 50,000 free lessons to people with disabilities each year.
That's
That's
awesome.
what our organizations are doing collectively. We also run over, I think, this year 44 different golf tournaments across the United States, including the United States Adaptive Open, which is hosted and ran by the United States Golf Association, who's the governing body of golf in the United States. Just like we have a U.S. Open, a U.S. Women's Open, a U.S. Amateur, we now have a U.S. Adaptive Open. So we were able to get the powers that be at golf to step up and embrace our sport, which has given us a tremendous amount of exposure, which has allowed us to really increase our outreach to people that acquire disabilities in life and introduce them to us.
Yes,
the USGA is currently taking the lead right now on worldwide trying to get our sport into the Paralympics. If we can get the sport in the Paralympics, then we can tap into funding that we can't tap into right now. There would just be tons of funding coming in, and more and more funding we can produce, and more services we can provide to people with disabilities, because these tournaments and events are phenomenal, and they change lives. And the biggest barrier for our players participating in tournaments is cost. There's travel costs associated. Time would be number 2, because many of our athletes do work and do have family obligations and so on and so forth. And if you only get 2 weeks off a year for your job, it's difficult to play in more than 1 or 2 tournaments.
Absolutely, yes.
They might only be a couple of days long, but you got to go do a trip with your family too, or even if you can afford a couple of trips a year. So we would like to get this where our sponsors take care of a lot of the base costs for and travel stipends for a lot of players, so that they can participate more in these events that really help these individuals get through life. And incidentally, I should tell your audience that if you go on to usaga.org, usaga.org, you can see pictures of all this, and you can access locations and times on the calendar of every tournament across the United States.
Even the adaptive tournaments.
Yeah, Yep.
That's great.
So
Yeah. Well,
here around Kentucky, we not only have the Kentucky tournament in June, but we have tournaments in Indianapolis and Missouri and Ohio and so a lot of the neighboring states have events in different times of the year as well. So
yeah.
anybody listening that knows somebody with a disability would be interested in playing golf, or maybe is already a golfer with a disability but doesn't know of the organization, they can go on there and see where these tournaments are being held and how to reach out to USAGA and get involved. And we'd love to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll link folks to that webpage in the show notes as well. Now, speaking of usaga.org, we can also go there to access the very first set of standards for competitive adaptive golf. We talked about it a little briefly earlier. This was the first set of standards to ever surface here in our nation. And also, you established a ranking system for, like you said, 15 sport classes. So, give us some more insight into the steps taken to establish the standards and ranking system and the guidance that you use to assist you in this undertaking.
Okay, I'll do that. First of all, I guess the biggest guidance was just 30 years of experience doing this
Oh,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
doing it personally.
And we talked about it for a few years before we ever actually put this organization together. And then once we put the organization together, we started having conversations with the groups with different disabilities. And let's see, I guess it was 2014, 15, I guess 15 before USAGA was really operating. And it was 2019 before we published our standards. So there was a good solid 3 or 4 years of just conversation and figuring out what we were going to put in the standards. How are we going to do this? What was important? All those things. And there were just numerous conversations. This was, Sam, this was not something that we just sit down one day, put on paper.
Yeah, oh, I can imagine it
Was
was definitely time
this was
consuming.
something that, yeah, we took very seriously and spent a lot of time with it. And at the end of the day, the end product, we tried to accomplish four things in the standards. Number one was to create an eligibility criteria. Now, luckily, we had somebody else that already led the way on that, and that is the Paralympics. They govern a variety of different sports for people with disabilities. So we adopted strictly from an eligibility standpoint. And what that means is, are you disabled enough or have enough of an impairment where you're considered having a disability?
Right, you got
They
to qualify.
Paralympics had done extensive work on that. Instead of trying to recreate the wheel, we just adopted their criteria from an eligibility standpoint. So the second thing we did once we had the eligibility, now we got all this diverse variety of impairment groups. So how do we classify? So that was the second thing we did, is we classified each impairment group, and we classified based on how we play the game of golf to try to make it fair in each sport class. And we came up with 15 different sport classes. So that was the second thing we did. The third thing we did was we provided what we referred to as distance allowances, which is the same thing golf does. So if you go onto a golf course and play golf, you'll see different tee boxes. There'll be what's referred to as a men's tee, regular tee. You'll see maybe a men's senior tee. So if you're a senior level age, then you get to move up some, and then women tees will move up as well. And then sometimes you might have what a pro tee or something like that, or for the young studs where they kick them back even a little bit farther. So the object being that there are distance allowances provided for gender, for age, in some cases even ability. Like the pros might play farther back, but So we did that in the world of disability as well. So that if you're totally blind or you're playing out of a wheelchair, you're gonna, if you're a seated player, you're gonna be moving up quite a bit because you have stronger challenges than somebody with maybe just a foot off that has a top of the line prosthetic. And if you didn't have shorts on, you might not even realize that they had an amputation.
Right. Yeah.
Or
Totally different animal in the
some,
wheelchair.
yeah. And still, I don't want to. Uh, I don't want to dismiss their disability. Everybody has
No,
one,
no.
obviously, but some of them are a little more challenging than the others as it goes into playing golf. So
Right.
what we've
Yeah.
done is certain sport classes, we provided distance allowances. So that was the number three thing we did. And then the last thing we did in the standards publication is we created a ranking system. So when you go play in one of these 44 tournaments around the country, based on your performance and based on the difficulty of the course that the tournament is played on, you receive a rating for that particular event. And
So
and so
yeah.
there's a constant rating that the organization uses for every athlete that participates, and that is a rolling 18-month schedule. So after 18 months, your scores from 19 months ago fall off, basically.
Also, they're a race. About how long did it take y'all together to create this? You remember?
I would say most of the time were discussions, and then once we kind of knew what we wanted to do, it was probably just a matter of months putting it all together.
Oh, so,
So by far, most of the time was just having discussions, trying to educate ourselves on, disability types that maybe we weren't real up on.
yeah,
We had to do a lot with vision impaired because we didn't really understand it. Because not only does the United States have certain criteria, we found out that the criteria internationally might be slightly different. And we wanted to make sure we did something that was inclusive. So if if um, if one of if a different impairment group had two different classification systems and one tended to be a little more exclusive, then we tried to lean toward the more inclusive one because we didn't want to turn people away. If that makes
right.
sense.
Yeah,
And
yeah, most
yeah, so
definitely.
it was. Yeah, it took a while, and actually, we're still working on it even today because once we implemented it and got rolling with it, we created what was called a competitions committee, which uh, leaders of the different organizations sit on the bigger ones, sit on the committee, or they appoint somebody to sit on the committee, and their primary role is to um, make any amendments as we go along to our standards as needed, because no plan is ever perfect in the beginning, as we know, and as things change um, with whatever, with life, then sometimes it
Yeah, with
warrants
experience and
a
time.
small change here and there. And whenever we make changes to the standards, we want to make sure everybody's represented to make those changes.
Yeah, so those standards might always be adjusted. Like, so for instance, I know for like blind and visually impaired golfers, they're allowed to golf with sort of like a coach behind them, correct? To sort of tell them like where the hole is and what,
Yes, yes, yes. Hmm.
challenges of challenges of that hole presents, and
Yeah.
how
So you,
hard they
so
have
you
to
don't
hit.
ever want to upset your coach because he might direct you in the wrong direction.
This is true. Yeah, he could aim you away from the hole on purpose. So yeah, always advice to blind golfers out there: make sure you always maintain a good rapport with with your coaches for sure. Now, lastly, Al, looking ahead to the future of adaptive golf, you said obviously you'd love to see it in the Paralympics. So we'll cross our fingers and toes for that. What what other aspects personally would you like to see adaptive golf continue to thrive and evolve in the years to come?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, Sam, because we have a major challenge right now that we're going through, and it involves the Paralympics. The Paralympics has their own kind of set of, let's say, how they look at classification. Okay, and without getting too technical here, I'll try to explain this the best we can. The Paralympics is something that's over several sports.
Uh-huh.
Now, those sports may have different things that require you to be good in that particular sport. What I mean by that is golf. If you only have one arm, it's going to be a lot more difficult to be good at golf than it is running a track event.
Yeah, I can see
So,
that.
as I had stated briefly earlier, when we did classifications for our sport, we classified based on how we all play the game of golf. Now, that they don't necessarily do that Paralympics. They classify based on um, what they would call as a functional challenge to a body. In other words, if you have an arm impairment or if you have a leg impairment, and whatever aids we might use to play our sport doesn't really matter to them. It's more they look at equality as uh, based on the physical ailment, so to speak. We're going to classify you that way. And then you have a sport that you only have so many medals, and you have TV, and you have all these other things that kind of creep into the picture. And what ends up happening is you have a classification structure that is much um, less. They have a lot less sport classes. When you have a lot less sport classes, what happens is now you have a lot of individuals within your sport that are competing against somebody that they can't really compete against very well because they're a little bit more impaired than those individuals. Does this make sense?
Yeah, you want people to be, competing
Yeah.
against
So
people with, equal
although we
capabilities.
want Paralympics because there's a lot of positives to Paralympics, obviously, what we have to be careful and what other sports have done and made mistakes with is they've allowed their entire sport to be governed and classified by the Paralympic standards. So in golf, this is even more of an importance because we have to kind of thread the needle in pushing forward with Paralympic inclusion. But at the same time, when that happens, we cannot allow those um, only, four, six, or eight sport classes to define the entire sport of golf. Because Paralympics really, you're only going to be dealing with the top 5% or less in your sport anyway. And we have to make sure that our standards and classifications govern everybody that plays so that people don't quit and run away from it because they don't feel like that they can compete under those rules. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, it does
Yeah.
most
So
definitely. So yes, we definitely need some adjustment in the Paralympic classifications. But yeah, once that happens, it'll definitely make for you know a better, more enjoyable experience for the adaptive
yeah, yeah.
golf sport
Yeah, so what we have to do
participants.
is make sure that there's a great working relationship between USGA, who's taken the lead on, who's over all of golf, who's taken the lead on Paralympic inclusion, and USAGA, who's over just adaptive golf. Because there's a
Oh
lot of things
yeah.
that USGA may not be aware of, and we have to make sure that the line of communication is very strong between the two organizations.
Yeah, so
So
USGA
that
and USAGA, they need to maintain a
yes, yes,
a
yes.
collaborative effort because, like you said,
See,
you know,
USAGA is the one running 40 something tournaments across the country for adaptive golfers, where USGA runs one, which is the US Open, which is a huge one. So we have to make sure that they continue to use their clout to get us into the Paralympics, but at the same time allow all the different state organizations who are helping grow our sport to use the classification system that we use
Well,
because it's
yes,
more inclusive. Yeah.
absolutely. Because, like I said, if you only have one arm, that's not going to necessarily limit you as much in track because you're mainly using your two
Right,
legs. But
right.
but with one arm, you're golfing. There's definitely going to be more limitations posed that need to be taken into account for sure. So, like we said, folks, go to usaga.org, which I'll link you to, and then you can access the publication of golf standards there, among other useful information about tournaments and so forth. If you've got any questions about any of the ground that we covered today, you can also email Al. It's al.gentry, al.gentry at kylegislature.gov. And let's see, there's also another website I'll link you to is NAOAGA for North American One Arm Golfer Association.org, so you can find out more about them. And any other means, Al, that you would suggest people find out more about, maybe specifically the Kentucky tournament and other things happening in our parts?
Yeah, if you go onto the USAGA website, the link to the Kentucky tournament will be on there as one of the tournaments. So that instead of giving you 30 different email address or
Right.
website addresses, yeah, that's the main one to remember. And of course, if you're an upper extremity guy and would like to have fun with the one-arm guys, we are the best group out there, by the way. We have the
Hey, it ain't
most
bragging
fun.
if it's a fact. So you can definitely go out there and have your fun, make lots of friends with Al and the gang. So just go to usaga.org and click on Kentucky. You can find out all you need to know about.
And Sam, I'll also say too, I didn't mean to interrupt you there,
No, you're
but
fine.
NAOAGA has a junior organization. So if you know of a kid that has an arm impairment,
Oh, okay.
we
So
can introduce them to the game of golf, and we raise money, and we will fly the kid and the parent to our annual championship, which they'll go through a clinic and they will see the pros at it and know what they can grow up to be like, so to
yeah,
speak.
that's awesome. So
And
they can get a feel for what they can do.
and I'll tell you how successful this has been. This year on our Fight Master Cup team, for the first time ever, there are 2 juniors that have qualified for the best 12 players in America.
So out of the
That's
12, 2 of them are juniors.
And they were graduates of our junior program at a very young age, and now they're 16, 17 years old, and they're playing on their high school teams, and they're playing great golf, and they're
So,
doing it in one arm.
so they're junior alums, shall we say, and now they're in their mid-teens and playing with the big boys.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it goes to show that the possibilities are almost endless, even for those with just one arm trying to make a name for themselves in the world of golf. Well, Al, thank you so much for joining us. We've learned way more than we could have ever possibly imagined. I hope you've enjoyed it, sir.
Oh yeah, I can't thank you enough. Anytime I can get on any kind of outlet or show or whatever and share the wonderful world of adaptive golf, I will always do everything I can to fit that in. So thank you, Samuel, for the platform you've provided me with today.
You take care and keep them all straight up there in Frankfurt for us.
All right. Well, I know that's almost an impossible task, but I'll keep trying my hardest.
Do the best you can. That's all we ask.
All right, Sam.
Demand and Disrupt is a production of the Advocacy Press with generous support from the Center for Accessible Living based in Louisville, Kentucky. Our executive producers are me, Kimberly Parsley, and Dave Mathis. Our sound engineer is Michael Parsley. Thanks to Chris Ankin for the use of his song, Change. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And please consider leaving a review. You can find links to our email and social media in the show notes. Please reach out and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks, everyone.
Just for once I think I would agree. We both know there's a difference. We've had our curtain call, and this time the writing's on the wall. This war of words we can't defend. Two damaged hearts refuse to mend. This situation's pointless with each and every day. It's not a game we need to play. We try to make things better, repair and rearrange things, but each and every letter spells out the need for us to open up our minds and hearts to change. Throw the dice, then what will be, will be. Disregard for good to set us free. There's just no way of knowing if love lives anymore. We'll turn out the light, then close the door. We try to make things better, repair and rearrange things, but each and every letter spells out the